The royal hall of Varithia shimmered beneath a ceiling made of crystal glass, each panel reflecting the twin suns that hung over the capital. Gold banners fluttered gently as the court gathered. The air carried a sense of curiosity, for today was not an ordinary audience. The princess had ordered the guards to bring in a visitor, a human from the far colonies. Princess Lyra of Varithia sat upon her silver throne, her long robes flowing like rivers of light. Her crown gleamed softly, yet her eyes shone brighter. She was young, clever, and known for her sharp tongue. Around her stood advisors, nobles, and soldiers of different alien races, tall beings with scaled skin, winged diplomats from the eastern sectors, and crystal-eyed scholars. Humans were still rare in Varithia. They were newcomers to the galaxy, having arrived only a decade ago from a distant blue-green planet called Earth. Their technology was simple compared to the ancient races of the Alliance, yet humans had something that unsettled the others, an unshakable confidence, a strange courage that defied logic. As the great doors opened, all eyes turned. A man in plain explorer's armor walked forward, escorted by 2 guards. He looked calm, though clearly out of place. His suit bore scratches and dust, and a patch on his shoulder read Terra Expeditionary Corps. He was tall, brown-haired, and carried himself with quiet strength. "State your name," said the royal herald. "Captain Leon Hayes of Earth," the man replied, bowing slightly. His voice echoed through the hall. Murmurs filled the room. Some nobles whispered in disbelief, others chuckled softly. A human daring to speak before the princess without trembling. That was bold. Princess Lyra rested her chin upon her hand, smiling faintly. "A captain from Earth," she said. "You traveled across the void just to meet me? Or is there something else you seek?" Leon met her gaze. "I came to offer a trade, Your Highness. My people bring something new. Not minerals, not weapons, but knowledge." Her smile grew wider. "Knowledge? What knowledge could a young species offer to Varithia, a world that has recorded history older than your entire civilization?" The hall chuckled softly. Even her advisors smirked. Humans were known for their ambition, but this sounded almost amusing. Leon didn't flinch. "The knowledge of survival," he said calmly. "You have vast power, but my kind has learned to endure. We've faced extinction, yet we rise every time." The princess tilted her head. "And why should that interest me?" "Because," he said, his voice steady, "your empire is dying, slowly, silently, and you need people who refuse to give up." The hall fell quiet. Alara's smile faded for the first time. Her advisor, Lord Sareth, shifted uneasily beside her. He was an elder of the High Council, known for his wisdom and his strict loyalty to the old traditions. "How dare you speak so carelessly in the royal court?" Sareth snapped. "You know nothing of our empire." Leon turned to him. "Maybe not as much as you, but I've seen enough. Empty farms on your outer moons, broken ships drifting near your borders, soldiers tired from endless patrols. Your empire is stretched thin, and soon, the outer worlds will break away." Gasps spread through the chamber. The princess looked at him intently. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Then she laughed softly, a graceful melodic sound that filled the hall. "You are either very brave or very foolish, Captain Hayes," she said. "To walk into a royal court and speak like that." Leon shrugged. "Maybe both, Your Highness." Her laughter grew. The nobles joined in nervously, unsure if they should laugh or remain silent. To them, this human seemed more like a performer than a diplomat. But as the laughter faded, Lord Sareth's face turned pale. His long fingers tightened around his staff. He had read recent reports, secret ones that spoke of failing energy reserves and rising rebellions at the Empire's edge. What the human said wasn't mere talk. It was truth. Princess Lyra noticed Sareth's expression and raised an eyebrow. "Advisor, something troubles you?" Sareth cleared his throat. "It is nothing, Your Highness," he said quickly. "Only that this outsider speaks with reckless words." But his voice trembled slightly, and the princess caught it. Her eyes narrowed and curiosity replaced amusement. She turned back to Leon. "Tell me, Captain, if what you say is true, what would humans do if they were in my place?" Leon took a moment before answering. "We'd fight for what matters," he said simply. "Not for power, not for pride, but for the people who believe in us. We'd rebuild, even if we had to start from dust." Something in his tone struck her deeply. It wasn't arrogance. It was conviction. "Humans rebuild," she repeated softly. "Interesting." He nodded. "We've done it more times than I can count. We lose, we adapt, we stand again. It's what keeps us alive." The princess leaned forward. "And you think your people can teach that to mine?" "I don't just think so," Leon said. "I know we can." A few advisors laughed again, but their voices were weaker now. Sareth remained silent, eyes fixed on the human as though trying to read his soul. Alara rose from her throne and stepped down the marble stairs. The hall fell silent as her footsteps echoed. She approached Leon slowly, her silver robe trailing behind her. When she stopped in front of him, she was close enough to see the faint scars on his armor. "Captain Hayes," she said softly, "you speak of courage as if it were something that can be taught. But courage is born in the heart. How can a species so new to the stars claim to understand it better than the old ones?" Leon looked into her eyes. "Because we never had the luxury of peace," he said. "Every step of our history was a fight, against nature, against ourselves, against the void. Courage isn't born from comfort, it's forged in struggle." Her gaze lingered on him for a long moment. Then she turned slightly, her voice now calm but sharp. "You believe my empire is failing. You believe your people can help. So tell, what is it you ask in return?" Leon hesitated only for a second. "A place in your alliance, equality for humanity." The hall erupted again. Shouts, gasps, and murmurs filled the air. To ask for equality from the most powerful empire in the quadrant, it was unthinkable. Alara raised her hand, and silence returned. Her eyes sparkled with something between amusement and intrigue. "You do not ask for gold or land, you ask for respect." "Yes," Leon said simply. For a moment neither spoke. Then the princess smiled again, but this time it wasn't mocking. It was thoughtful. "You interest me, Captain Hayes," she said. "Most who stand before me speak out of fear or greed. You speak out of belief. That is rare." Leon bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Highness." "Do not thank me yet," she said. "You may have just started something that cannot be undone." As she returned to her throne, she glanced once more at her pale advisor. Sareth's mind raced. If the human's words spread, others might question the council's leadership. Change was dangerous, yet deep down, he knew. The man was right. Outside the hall, the twin suns of Varithia began to set, painting the sky in gold and crimson. The human looked up at the alien skyline, towers that touched the clouds, ships gliding through invisible lanes of light. Somewhere out there, he thought, humanity's fate was changing. And so the story began, not with war or rebellion, but with a single conversation that made an empire tremble. The next morning, the palace of Varithia was unusually quiet. The great halls that were usually filled with laughter and music now carried whispers of last night's event. The court could not stop talking about the human who dared to speak so boldly to the princess. Some called him a fool. Others thought he might be a prophet of change. Princess Alara sat by the wide window of her chamber, staring at the city below. The light of the twin suns made the towers glow softly like polished silver. From here the capital looked perfect, peaceful and strong. Yet her mind was restless. She could not forget Captain Leon Hayes. His words echoed in her thoughts. "Your empire is dying. Slowly. Silently." No one had ever said such a thing to her face. And no one had dared to speak it with such calm honesty. She found herself wondering if the human might truly see something that her own people could not. There was a soft knock on the door. Her advisor, Lord Sareth, entered quietly. His long robe brushed against the crystal floor. "You called for me, Your Highness?" he asked respectfully. "Yes," she said, turning toward him. "Tell me, Sareth. You looked pale yesterday when the human spoke. Was it because of what he said?" Sareth bowed slightly. "Your Highness, the man's words were dangerous. He spoke truth wrapped in insolence. And truth, when used carelessly, can divide kingdoms, but was he wrong?" she asked. Sareth paused. His eyes lowered for a moment. "Not entirely," he admitted. "Some border worlds have grown restless. Supply lines are stretched thin, but these are matters for the Council, not for foreign visitors." Alara smiled faintly. "You fear that his ideas might spread." "I fear that his presence might inspire those who should not dream of change," Sareth replied. The princess turned back to the window. "Perhaps dreams are what we need," she said softly. Sareth frowned. "Humans are impulsive, Your Highness. They rise fast, but they fall faster. Their courage is not wisdom. It is fire, bright but short-lived." Alara nodded slowly. "And yet fire can warm the frozen Sareth." The advisor sighed. He knew he could not change her curiosity once it had taken root. "What do you plan to do with him?" "I plan to listen," she said simply. "Prepare a private meeting. No nobles, no guards, just him, you and me." Sareth hesitated, then bowed. "As you command." 2 hours later, in a quiet chamber deep within the palace, Captain Leon Hayes stood before the princess again. This time there was no audience, no laughter, and no golden light from the ceiling. Only a soft glow from the floating lamps above. Alara sat at a round table with Sareth beside her. She looked calm but alert. "Captain Hayes," she began, "you spoke boldly yesterday. I hope you understand that such words could have cost you your life in another court." Leon nodded. "I understand, Your Highness. But I meant every word." "Then let us see if your truth is worth its danger," she said. "Tell me what you really came here for. Do not hide behind polite speeches." Leon placed a small data crystal on the table. It flickered and a holographic image appeared. A map of the Varethian Empire, its borders glowing in blue. Slowly, red lines began to spread from the edges inward, marking broken routes, empty colonies, and lost fleets. "This," he said, "is your empire today. Or at least, what my scanners picked up on the way here." Sareth's eyes widened. "How did you get this information?" "These are classified regions." Leon looked at him calmly. "We humans watch everything. We don't have power, but we observe, and we notice patterns. The outer sectors are failing, aren't they?" Alara studied the map in silence. Each red mark was a wound on her kingdom. After a long moment, she asked, "Why show me this?" "Because," Leon said, "you can still stop it." Sareth shook his head. "And what do you expect us to do? Invite your kind to rule beside us?" Leon didn't react to the insult. "Not rule, help. We humans may be young, but we know how to start again from nothing. You've seen our colonies. Harsh worlds, toxic air, little food. Yet we survive. If we can rebuild a planet, imagine what we could do for a world like yours." Alara leaned forward. "You speak of partnership." "Yes," he said. "Not as servants, not as conquerors, equals." Sareth scoffed. "Equality with humans? That's impossible." Leon turned to him slowly. "That's what every old empire says before they fall." The room grew still. Even Sareth's words caught in his throat. Alara looked between them, sensing the tension. Then she spoke softly. "Tell me, Captain, what drives you to risk so much for this?" Leon's voice lowered. "Because my people are tired of being seen as background characters in someone else's story. We came to the stars not to serve, but to stand." Something in his words touched her heart again. That same fire she had seen yesterday. Sareth broke the silence.
"Your Highness, may I speak plainly?"
"Always," she said. "This man is dangerous. His words are seeds of rebellion. If humans are given equality, others will demand the same. The empire will collapse from within." Leon looked at him. "Or it will grow stronger." Sareth turned sharply. "You know nothing of ruling." "I know what happens when rulers stop listening," Leon replied. Alara raised a hand, stopping them both. "Enough!" Her tone was calm but firm. She stood and walked toward the window. Outside, the twin suns were beginning to set again, painting the sky in red and gold. "Captain Hayes," she said without turning around, "your people speak of survival and courage. But courage without purpose is chaos. Tell me, what is the purpose of your offer?" Leon answered without hesitation. To build something new. A future where your empire doesn't fall, and where my people can belong. The princess turned to face him, her expression unreadable. And what if I refuse? Leon looked directly at her. Then humanity will find its own way. But you'll lose the only allies who still believe in rising rather than ruling. A long silence followed. The only sound was the hum of the hologram still projecting the wounded empire. Lyra finally spoke. You are unlike anyone I have met, Captain. You do not fear consequence, Leon smiled slightly. Humans fear. We just don't let it decide for us. She studied him closely, as if trying to see what kind of spirit could speak this way. Then she said, Very well. I will give you one chance. Sareth looked alarmed. Your Highness, you cannot. I can, she said, cutting him off. If humanity truly believes it can help, then prove it. Leon nodded slowly. Name your test. There is a world on the border, Alara said. Drain 4. It was once a proud colony, but now it lies silent. Our last report said its atmosphere has collapsed and its people are starving. Go there, save it. If you can breathe life into that world again, then maybe your words hold truth. Leon's eyes brightened. Consider it done. Sareth stepped forward. Your Highness, this is madness. The planet is dying. Sending him there is no favor. Lyra turned to her advisor. Perhaps, or perhaps it will show us what kind of people humans really are. Leon bowed respectfully. Thank you, Your Highness. You won't regret this. As he left the chamber, the princess watched him go. A small spark of curiosity and hope lit her heart. She didn't know why, but something about that man made her believe the impossible might be possible. Sareth remained beside her, uneasy. He is trouble, Your Highness. Mark my words. Fire can light the way, but it can also burn everything. Ilara's eyes followed the human's fading figure through the doorway. Maybe, she said softly. But sometimes a world must burn before it can shine again. Outside, the ships of the palace guards shimmered in the golden light. One of them was being prepared for departure, a small vessel marked with the symbol of Earth. Inside it, Captain Leon Hayes checked his gear, ready to travel to Drain 4. He knew this mission wasn't just about saving a world. It was about proving that humanity could stand among the stars, not as guests, but as equals. And far above, unseen by either of them, the stars of the galaxy seemed to flicker, as if watching the beginning of something greater than any empire had ever known. The stars stretched like silver threads across the black sky as Captain Leon Hayes' ship approached Drain 4. From orbit, the planet looked broken, a dusty gray world covered with storm clouds and cracks of fire running along its surface. Once it had been green and full of life, a jewel of the Varithian Empire. Now it was dying slowly and silently. Inside the cockpit, Leon sat alone, staring at the monitor. The readings were grim. Oxygen levels dropping, temperature unstable, radiation pockets across the surface. Any normal mission team would have turned back. But humans had never been famous for turning back. He spoke softly into his log recorder. Captain Hayes, Mission Day 1. Objective: assess survival conditions on Drain 4. Secondary objective: prove that humans can build where others have given up. The ship shook slightly as it entered the atmosphere. Outside, waves of orange light flashed like angry lightning. The hull glowed red for a moment before the ship broke through the storm clouds. Below, Leon saw the remains of cities, tall towers half buried in dust, roads split open by earthquakes, and what looked like dry riverbeds stretching to the horizon. Welcome to paradise, Leon said to himself with a small, tired smile. He landed near what the computer identified as Haven City, once the capital of the colony. The landing site was quiet, only wind moving through the ruins. He stepped out wearing a sealed survival suit, the human flag on his shoulder shining faintly in the dim sunlight. As he walked, his boots crunched against broken glass. Signs of life were rare, only the bones of machines and collapsed domes. But then his scanner beeped faintly. The sound made him stop. Life detected, the machine said. Leon followed the signal through a narrow street until he reached an old underground shelter. The entrance was sealed by metal doors covered in dust. He pressed his hand against them and they slid open slowly with a deep mechanical groan. Inside was darkness, and then the sound of movement. A small group of Varithians stepped out cautiously. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. They were thin, tired, and clearly starving. At their front stood a young woman with short silver hair and a cracked breathing mask. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice weak. "Captain Leon Hayes," he said. "I'm from Earth. I came to help." The group exchanged unsure looks. Humans were legends to them, faraway newcomers who rarely left their own worlds. The woman hesitated. "Help? There is no help left. Our atmosphere generators failed months ago. We only have a few days of air." "Then I came just in time," Leon said. He removed his backpack and pulled out a small box. When he opened it, tiny mechanical devices floated into the air, glowing blue. "Portable atmospheric processors," he explained. "They can make breathable air from the thin gases still left here." The Varethian stared in shock. "You brought these from your world?" she asked. Leon smiled. "We built them from scrap. Humans are good at making something out of nothing." He placed the devices around the shelter. Within minutes, the air monitors began to rise. The people took their first deep breaths in days, their eyes wide with relief. The silver-haired woman stepped forward, her voice trembling. "You saved us." "I only started," Leon said. "How many of you are left?" "Less than 300, she whispered. "Most of the others left when the Empire abandoned us." Leon frowned. "Abandoned?" She nodded. "They said the planet couldn't be saved. Too dangerous, too costly." He looked around at the broken walls and thought of Princess Lyra. She had trusted him with this mission, but her council, her people, had already turned away from these survivors. It was wrong. "We're going to change that," Leon said firmly. "We'll rebuild this place." For the next few days, Leon worked without rest. He repaired solar panels, cleaned air vents, and reactivated the colony's water filters. The Varethians watched in disbelief as the human worked with tireless energy, using old machines in new ways. He was joined by the silver-haired woman, whose name was Lyra. She had once been an engineer before the colony fell apart. Together they formed a strange team, human creativity and Varethian precision working side by side. "Why do you do this?" she asked one evening as they repaired a broken generator. "Your kind owes us nothing." Leon tightened a bolt and looked at her. "Because we know what it feels like to be forgotten," he said simply. "Back home, no one believed humanity would survive its first step into space. We proved them wrong. Now I'll do it again for you." Lyra was silent for a moment. Then she smiled faintly. "You are strange, Captain Hayes." "I get that a lot," he replied with a grin. Days passed. The air grew cleaner and green patches began to appear on the dry ground where the processors worked hardest. The people slowly returned to the surface, amazed to see the faint signs of life returning. Children played in the open air for the first time in years. Hope began to rise, not just in their lungs, but in their hearts. One night, as Leon checked the readings near the edge of the city, he looked up at the sky. The stars shone brightly, but something else caught his eye, a shadow moving among them. His visor magnified the image. It was a ship, not Varethian and definitely not human. His communicator crackled. "Captain Hayes, this is Lyra. The scanners show an unidentified craft entering low orbit." "I see it," he replied. "Prepare the shelter, just in case." Within minutes, alarms echoed through the old colony. The survivors hurried underground again. Leon stood outside, watching the ship descend through the clouds. It was dark and sharp like a blade cutting through the sky. When it landed, the ground trembled. The ship's doors opened and figures in black armor stepped out, tall insect-like aliens with glowing red eyes. Lyra gasped when she saw them through the monitor. "Raiders," she said. "They used to attack our supply ships. They take what they want and leave nothing behind." Leon's hand tightened around his rifle. "Not this time." He walked forward slowly, his boots crunching against the dust. The raiders spotted him and raised their weapons, but he didn't stop. He switched on his suit's loudspeaker. "This world is under human protection," he said calmly. "Leave now." The leader of the raiders hissed something in its own language and aimed. But before it could fire, Leon threw a flash device that exploded in bright white light. He ran through the confusion, firing warning shots to drive them back. The Varethians, watching from their shelter, couldn't believe what they were seeing. A single human standing against a band of raiders to protect a world that wasn't even his own. After a short but intense fight, the raiders retreated to their ship. They had expected easy prey, not resistance. As they lifted off, Leon stood breathing heavily, dust covering his armor. When he returned to the colony, Lyra ran to meet him. You fought them off, she said in disbelief. They'll be back, he said quietly. But next time we'll be ready. She looked at him with admiration. You're different from the stories we were told about humans. Maybe the stories were written too soon, he said with a tired smile. Days turned into weeks. Drain 4 began to heal. Air processors covered the valleys. Water began to flow again and small plants grew in the cracks of the streets. The Varethians called it a miracle. Leon called it teamwork. One evening, as he sent his report back to Varethia, he spoke softly into his recorder. Mission update, Drain 4 is breathing again. The people are rebuilding. Maybe the princess was right. Sometimes a single act of courage can wake a whole world. Far away in the royal palace, Princess Alara listened to his transmission through her private channel. She sat in silence, her heart full of both pride and fear. Leon Hayes had done what her council said was impossible. He had brought life back to a dying planet. Lord Sareth entered the chamber quietly and bowed. Your Highness, the humans' report has reached the council. They are unsettled. Alara looked at him. Unsettled? Or afraid? Sareth hesitated. Perhaps both. If he succeeds completely, he will prove that humans can do what the Empire could not. The princess looked out the window toward the stars where Drain 4 lay. Then maybe it's time someone did. Her words hung in the air like a promise that change was coming, faster than anyone expected. The grand palace of Varethia had never been this noisy. The marble halls echoed with voices, angry, afraid, uncertain. The news of Drain 4's revival had spread like wildfire. Everyone was talking about the same thing. A human had done what the Empire could not. Princess Alara stood at the high balcony, looking over the shining city. From above, it still appeared calm and beautiful, but she knew the peace was fragile. Below the surface, something had shifted. Behind her, the council chamber doors opened with a heavy creak. Lord Sareth entered, followed by 6 senior advisors, each wearing long robes marked with gold symbols of power. Their faces showed both worry and pride, though the pride was not for her. Alara, Princess of Varethia, began Councillor Thalen, the oldest among them. We have received the final report from Drain 4. The human, Captain Hayes, has restored partial atmosphere and water flow. The colony is breathing again. Alara turned slowly. Yes, I have read his message. It is remarkable. Thalen's eyes narrowed. Remarkable, yes, but also dangerous. His success is causing unrest in the outer colonies. They now ask why the council did not act sooner. Some even say the human should lead our reconstruction efforts. Sareth stepped forward. Your Highness, the council fears his influence. Humanity may be small in number, but their ideas are spreading faster than any fleet. Alara studied their faces one by one. You are afraid of one man's success? Thalen spoke again. Not just his success and his example. If he proves that humans can do what we cannot, then our people will question everything we stand for. The Empire was built on the belief that the Varethians are the most advanced, the most wise. That belief is now cracking. For a long moment, the princess said nothing. Then she spoke softly. Perhaps it is time for those cracks to appear. Empires that never question themselves eventually fall. The room went silent. Sareth's voice lowered. Your Highness, be careful. Words like that can shake foundations. Alara smiled faintly. Maybe they need shaking. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, Thalen said, the council requests that you recall the human immediately. Bring him back before his influence grows further. Alara's expression hardened. He is still rebuilding a world. I will not interrupt him, Sareth sighed quietly. If you defy the council, they may move against you. The princess looked at him with calm eyes. Then they will learn that leadership is not the same as fear. Far away on Drain 4, Captain Leon Hayes stood beneath a rising sun. The sky, once gray and dead, now showed streaks of pale blue. He took off his breathing mask for the first time and inhaled the cool air. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Around him, Varethians worked together, rebuilding homes, cleaning the ruins, planting the first crops. Lyra walked up beside him carrying a scanner. Atmospheric readings are stable. You did it, she said with a bright smile. Leon shook his head. We did it. All of us. The people had begun to call him the Rebuilder. It made him uncomfortable, but he accepted it if it gave them hope. Each day more survivors came from hidden shelters, believing that life was possible again. Messages are coming in from the other colonies, Lyra told him. They want to know if it's true. If Drain the Four really lives again. Leon looked up at the sky. Tell them yes. And tell them to start fixing their worlds too. If we can do it here, they can do it anywhere. Suddenly the communications console beeped. A transmission from Varethia. Leon opened the channel and the holographic image of Princess Alara appeared, faint but clear. Captain Hayes, she said with a gentle smile. I see Drain 4 is alive again. He bowed slightly. Yes, Your Highness. The people have hope again. I wish you could see it. I wish I could, she said softly. You have done what many thought was impossible. You've given the Empire something even greater than life. You've given it belief. Leon's tone grew serious. But your council isn't happy, are they? Her smile faded. No, they fear what your success represents. They think humanity will challenge their power. He nodded slowly. Change always scares those who sit too long in one place. She gave a small laugh. You speak like a philosopher, Captain. Just an engineer who's seen too much failure, he said lightly. Ilara's expression softened. Keep doing what you must, but be careful. There are those who would rather see Drain 4 fall again than see you rise higher. Understood, he said firmly. I didn't come this far to give up now. The hologram flickered and vanished. Lyra looked at him. The princess trusts you? She's one of the few who does, Leon said. Then, after a pause, he added quietly, that makes her a target. Back in the royal palace, tensions grew daily. The streets outside the council buildings were filled with peaceful protests. Citizens held banners written in bright letters. If humans can rebuild, so can we. Lord Sareth walked quickly through the halls to meet the princess. He found her standing before a star map studying the colonies. Your Highness, he said quietly, the council has voted to restrict human contact. They want to send a fleet to bring Captain Hayes back, by force if needed. Ilara's eyes turned cold. If they send warships to a world he saved, it will destroy everything we've built. Sareth looked uneasy. They do not care about rebuilding. They care about control. She turned sharply to face him. And you, Sareth? Where do you stand? The old advisor hesitated. For the first time, he seemed uncertain. I once believed humans were too young, too reckless. But now I see something else in them. Something we lost long ago, the will to start again. Perhaps that is worth protecting. Ilara smiled faintly. Then stand with me. We may need to act fast. That night, under the cover of darkness, the council launched its ships toward Drain 4. But Ilara was already one step ahead. She had secretly sent her own royal cruiser, unmarked, to warn Leon. As the fleet approached the outer atmosphere, Leon's sensors began to flash red. Incoming vessels, he said aloud. Varethian signature. But no communication. Lyra's eyes widened. The Empire? Why are they here? Leon's face hardened. Because they're afraid. The ships began descending fast. He opened the emergency channel. This is Captain Hayes of Drain 4. Identify yourselves. There was only silence. All right, he muttered. Guess we're not friends today. He ordered the colonists into the underground shelters and activated the defense drones he had built from scrap. They weren't strong, just small human-made machines meant for repair, but they could distract long enough to buy time. When the first council ship landed, Leon stood outside again just as he had with the raiders. He didn't raise his weapon this time. He simply waited. From the ship emerged a squad of armored soldiers. The leader stepped forward and spoke coldly. By order of the Varethian Council, you are to surrender this colony and return with us for questioning. Leon crossed his arms. And if I refuse? Then we take you by force, he sighed. I was hoping you'd say that. With a small signal from his wrist device, a dozen drones buzzed to life behind him, glowing blue and circling the soldiers. They didn't fire. They only hovered, forming a protective wall between him and the colonists. This isn't a war zone, Leon said. This is a home. These people have suffered enough. Tell your masters that humanity doesn't run from bullies. The commander hesitated. His soldiers waited for orders, uncertain. Before he could speak, a voice echoed through their ship's comm, sharp and commanding. It was Princess Ilara. Stand down, she ordered. This mission is cancelled by royal command. Everyone froze. The soldiers exchanged nervous looks. Ilara's voice continued, calm but firm. If any harm comes to Captain Hayes or the colony of Drain 4, every one of you will answer to me directly. Return to Varethia. The communication ended. Slowly, the soldiers lowered their weapons. The commander nodded stiffly. Understood, Your Highness, he said quietly. They retreated to their ships and lifted off, leaving only dust behind. Lyra ran out to Leon. They're leaving. Leon exhaled, shoulders relaxing. Looks like the princess has better aim than her council. Far above the clouds in her palace chamber, Ilara watched the stars again. She knew she had just defied the council openly. There would be consequences, or perhaps severe ones. Sareth entered quietly. They will come for you, Your Highness. I know, she said softly. But I will not let them destroy what he's built. The people believe in him now and in me. That's something the council can't stop. Sareth bowed. Then may courage guide us both. She turned her eyes back to the night sky, where Draenor shone faintly among the stars. And somewhere below that glowing light, a human stood among aliens, rebuilding a world that had once been written off as lost, proving once again that humanity's greatest weapon was not strength or technology, but hope. The twin suns of Draenor IV were rising when Leon Hayes received the message that changed everything. Transmission from Varethia, Lyra announced. Her face was pale. It's not from the princess. It's from the council. Leon stood from the control desk, his brow tightening. Play it. A cold, mechanical voice filled the small command room. Captain Hayes of Earth, you have directly interfered with Imperial authority. You are ordered to surrender within 3 days. Failure to comply will result in the termination of your operations and all support to your colony. The Varethian Empire does not tolerate rebellion. The message ended. Silence followed. Lyra's voice trembled.
They called you a rebel, Leon sighed.
I expected that. When you help people they've forgotten, they call it rebellion. Outside the dome, hundreds of colonists were already awake, working on the green patches spreading across the once gray soil. Tiny plants shimmered in the sunlight, the first signs of real life in years. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was renewal, but now that renewal was in danger again. Far across the stars in the palace of Varethia, Princess Ilara stood before the council chamber. Her golden dress trailed behind her, but her eyes were cold and determined. The 12 counselors sat high above her on marble thrones. At the center was Thalen, his expression hard as stone. Princess Ilara, he began, you have openly defied Imperial command. You stopped our soldiers from retrieving the human. Do you deny this? I do not, she said calmly. I stopped you from making a mistake. Thalen slammed his hand on the table. A mistake? That creature undermines our rule. Ilara lifted her chin. He is not a creature. He is a man. A man who did what your fleets could not. He gave life to a dead world. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Sareth stood behind her silently, watching the storm build. Thalen's eyes narrowed. You speak as if he were our equal. Ilara's voice rose slightly. He is our equal. The humans may be few, but their courage and will are unmatched. You fear them not because they are weak, but because they remind you what true strength looks like. Gasps filled the room. Some counselors turned pale, others whispered in disbelief. Sareth took a step forward. Your Highness, he said softly, perhaps. But Ilara didn't stop. You claim to be the guardians of our empire. Yet when one man shows us a better way, you call him dangerous. That fear will destroy us faster than any enemy. Thalen's voice turned icy. Enough. You have spoken like a traitor to your own kind. I speak as someone who still believes in the heart of our people, Ilara replied. If the Empire cannot accept hope, then it no longer deserves the stars. For a moment, silence ruled. Then Thalen spoke again slowly. Then hear your punishment, Princess Ilara of Varethia. You are hereby suspended from royal authority. You will remain under watch until further notice. Sareth's face fell. Counselor, this is madness. Silence, Lord Sareth, Thalen snapped. You too are suspected of aiding her schemes. Guard stepped forward, but Ilara raised a hand. No need for chains, she said quietly. I will go, but remember this. Walls cannot stop the truth, and neither can you. With that, she turned and walked out of the chamber, her steps calm and steady even as the great doors closed behind her. Back on Draenor IV, Leon worked beside his team, repairing one of the colony's energy towers. The air was clearer now, the wind carrying a scent of life. Lyra ran toward him, holding a data pad. Leon, the princess has been removed from power. He froze. What? It's all over the broadcast, she said quickly. The Council has taken control. They're sending a fleet to shut down Drain 4 completely. Leon's jaw tightened. So it begins. He looked over the growing fields, the laughing children, the alien families who had started to smile again. He couldn't let all of this end. Gather the colonists, he said. We're not running this time. Within an hour, hundreds stood together in the center square. Varethians, humans, engineers, and farmers. Leon climbed onto a metal crate and looked at them. They're coming, he said loudly. They call us rebels because we built something without their permission. But look around you. Does this look like rebellion? The people murmured. Heads nodded. This is life, Leon continued. This is what they forgot long ago. How to fight for something good. If they come to take that away, then we'll stand together. Not with weapons. With proof. They can't silence every voice. A young Varethian boy shouted, We'll stand with you, Captain. And a wave of cheers followed. It wasn't the sound of an army. It was the sound of unity. In her quiet chamber, Alara looked at the stars again. 2 guards stood at her door, but she didn't mind. A small communication device blinked on her table. It was hidden but still active. She pressed it and Leon's hologram appeared. Your Highness, he said softly. You're safe? For now, she said with a tired smile. They stripped my title, but they can't strip my voice. Leon nodded. They're coming for us. I know. I warned Sareth to delay their fleet as long as he could. Alara hesitated, then asked quietly, Leon, do you regret helping us? He looked around at the growing world behind him. Not for a second. Drain 4 isn't just your world anymore, and it's everyone's. You once said hope needs to be shaken. Well, I think we've shaken it enough to wake it up. Alara laughed softly, though tears shimmered in her eyes. You always speak so simply, but your words carry fire. Maybe because I've got no palace to protect, he said lightly. Only people? She looked at him for a long time. Promise me something, Leon. What is it? If the worst happen, if the Council attacks, promise you won't let this world die again. I promise, he said quietly. No matter what. The Council's fleet arrived 2 days later, 50 grand ships filling the sky like a storm. The colonists watched in silence as their shadows stretched across the land. From orbit, the Council commander's voice thundered through the air. This is your final warning. Vacate the planet or face cleansing protocols. Leon stood in the square unarmed, facing the sky. This world belongs to its people, he replied. You will have to destroy hope itself to take it. There was a long pause. Then the commander gave the order. Energy pulses began to charge in the ship's undercarriages, bright spheres glowing with lethal power. Lyra whispered, Leon, they're really going to do it. He didn't move. He only stared at the light. Not yet, he murmured. Suddenly, the fleet's formation broke apart. One massive royal cruiser appeared behind them, its golden wings shining like fire. It broadcast a new signal. This is Princess Lyra of Varethia, her voice declared across the system. Cease your attack immediately. Thalen's furious voice shouted over the Council channel. You have no authority. Ilara's tone was sharp as a blade. Then let the people decide who holds it. She transmitted a live feed from Drain 4 to every colony in the Empire, showing millions of viewers the living world. The green fields and the united faces of humans and Varethians rebuilding together. This is what you wish to destroy, she said. A home, a dream. The rebirth of life itself. For the first time in centuries, the Empire saw truth without the Council's filter. Across hundreds of worlds, people began to rise and speak in her name. The fleet commander hesitated. Your Highness, Stand down, Alara said softly. You are not my enemy. Fear is. The weapons dimmed. One by one, the ships powered down. Cheers erupted across Drain 4. The colonists fell to their knees, laughing and crying. Leon closed his eyes, feeling the wind move across his face. The planet had chosen peace. Weeks later, the Council was dissolved by the vote of the people. Alara was restored to her throne, not as a ruler, but as a leader chosen by hearts instead of laws. When Leon returned to Varethia for the first time, the crowds filled the starport to greet him. He walked beside the princess toward the grand balcony overlooking the shining capital. The air was filled with lights, symbols of unity between humans and Varethians. You did it? Alara said softly. Leon smiled. No, we did, together. Sareth joined them, his old eyes warm with pride. Perhaps this time, he said, the Empire will learn from those it once looked down upon. Ilara turned to Leon. What will you do now? He looked back toward the sky. There are other dead worlds out there. Maybe it's time they got a second chance, too. She laughed. That same gentle, hopeful laugh that once filled the council chambers. But this time, when her advisor turned pale, it wasn't from fear. It was from awe, because the princess was laughing with hope and the Empire was finally learning to follow.